Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Brothers podcast from Alpha Centauri.
That's
Not our... Okay.
Brothers ready? Roll podcast and action.
Sorry, I'm just excited. I'm really excited for this podcast. I've been waiting a long time to do this one.
Alright, so we're actually in the same room this time. This is not all of our other podcasts. If you haven't noticed the shitty audio quality, it was because we were doing it over Skype.
Over remote locations.
Sure, yeah. Now we're actually in the same room, using the same... We're only using one mic, because we have no budget. So yeah, this episode is gonna be about Batman. I'm Max, by the way.
I'm Nick, and we are the Real Brothers.
The Real Brothers.
And yeah, this time we're doing something a little different again, kind of like last week, where we did some sort of weird theme. We have always talked about this in the past. You and me have talked about this a lot in the past.
Of course.
One time, we were just having this really in-depth conversation about the Batman movies. And we were raving about how the Dark Knight trilogy was so good. So good, of course. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
But
one of the best trilogies, just as a whole.
Yeah,
just the trilogy.
As a complete piece. We'll get to that. But we noticed the more and more we talked about it, it had these little funny things about it that you just... As me, as a big Batman fan, you have to have in a Batman movie. You absolutely have to have, in my opinion. So, we decided instead to kind of come at all the Batman movies live action that have been made up until this point, and really find what is the best Batman movie. So we're gonna go about a few different ways.
Not just the best, because pretty much obviously Dark Knight is the answer of the best movie of the Batman movies. Everybody knows that. But the best movie to depict Batman is what we're mostly leaning towards in this one.
Yeah.
But there's no denying Dark Knight is one of the greatest movies ever made.
It is.
So,
what is it got? Like a 9.1 on IMDb or
it's
something crazy?
Out of IMDb's top 250, I think it's number 4 out of 5. It beat Pulp Fiction, which actually makes me happy because I love Pulp Fiction, but it's not even the best. That's for another rant. That's for another rant. But it's really not the best Tarantino movie, and everyone says it is. It's classic and everything like that, but it's just not the best.
Yeah. So before we get into it, and we're gonna get into some heavy stuff, but before we get into that, how was your week, Max? Did you enjoy April Fools and all the awesome internet jokes and trolls that were abound?
I did.
What was your favorite? Did you have one that you noticed that you liked a lot?
Well, my definite favorite was the obvious one that was the Deadpool one, which I'll link in this. It's the greatest. It's the greatest little reveal of a movie being rated R, which makes me happy. Every movie so far recently that's been confirmed to be rated R has just made me happy. Like Deadpool and both Deadpool and Mad Max have been confirmed to be rated R, which is great because if those movies do successfully financially, that will open the door to more big budget R-rated action movies. Because
do you really think so? 'Cause
I do.
I'd like to hope so.
Because when you think about it, the biggest budget movies haven't been PG-13 or haven't been rated R in a long time, and even if they were big budget, they were sometimes they even flopped. Like Dredd was a big budget, or it was a relatively large budgeted R-rated action movie, and it did shit in the box office.
Which is too bad because the fans loved it.
The fans loved it. It was amazing. It was a fantastic movie. I was so happy with it.
Definitely erased the memory of that terrible Sylvester Stallone one.
That's one of those cult ones. That's one of those super goofy movies. That's not really that great. Yeah. But it's goofy, and it's I guess it's classic. Apparently it's pretty... This actually ties in. It's apparently the new Dredd was actually a lot more accurate to the AD comics. It's I forgot. It's 3000 AD is the name of the comics. I'm probably gonna be messing that up, and everyone's mad at me. But apparently the new Dredd is more accurate to said comic series, which is
I gotta say
into what we're saying.
Well, I gotta say my favorite. I read an article about a newly discovered flying spider, and the picture was right.
Christ Almighty! Don't tell me stuff like that.
No, but the picture was really convincing. The spider was there, and the wings were coming out, and everything. And you read along, and it was funny. And And everybody, of course, that was posting it on Facebook was a fucking idiot. So they're all just like, oh my god, this is terrifying. And you read all along. Finally, you get to a point that you get to, and you see that on the very bottom it says, this is an April Fool's joke. You know, like, duh, it's a fucking April Fool's joke. Ugh. It's April 1st, guys. Literally everything you read on the internet cannot be true. Well, some things.
I won't be able to link this because they changed it, but April Fool's Day on Collider.com was just a gold mine. It was perfect. It was like every article either made it seem like it was super old. Like the one article was like, Star Wars Episode 1, the Phantom Menace trailer leaked. It looks amazing. Stuff like that. And then like, what was it? It was like Robert Pattinson rumored to play the next Punisher or something like that. It was just every single... It was this whole... It wasn't like it had one joke on there. The entire homepage was just this list of hilarious, like, fake articles. And, I don't know. I thought it was great. I actually tried to do... I needed to do something for school, and Collider was involved in that. But unfortunately, I waited till the last minute. And April Fool's Day, I went on Collider, and I'm like, shit. This is all fake stuff. I can't actually find... I don't think you could actually find real articles that entire day.
Yeah. Moral of the story... April Fool's sucks. I actually starting to hate it now. You can't believe shit, and like good announcements happen, and you have no idea if it's real. But anyways, that's our moral of the story. Fuck April Fools. But yeah, you were saying about Dredd does lead into it. In order to make a good kind of analysis of each movie, because everybody's gonna listen to this and think our opinions are shit, and it doesn't matter anyways. And,
woo. Point of the show.
We like to have some sort of preparation. So what I personally like to do, since I'm going to be looking at it from a purely Batman perspective. I consider myself a pretty versed Batman nerd, and as far as Max will be looking at it from a filmmaker's standpoint, paying attention to the writing, the acting, the pacing, stuff like that. And hopefully we can, by the end of this, come to a somewhat agreement of what we think is the best Batman movie or the best combination of both together. Now, just to set off what Batman is, because there's so many interpretations of everything, who am I going to look at? Who is the best Batman? How do you define Batman? I guess I would use what everybody associates with Batman, and because it came first, and this is how he originated, I would use the comics starting in 1930 with the Detective Comics. I would have to use that version. Now, it was a little campier and stranger back then, but my definition of Batman is, 1, world's greatest detective. That's one right away. He's highly intelligent, highly intellectual. 2, he's Bruce Wayne also, as his alternate persona. Billionaire, suave in the public, gives away his money, very good with the women. But in Bruce, at home by himself, he's very torn and twisted by his parents' curse. He constantly needs to do this to avenge his parents' death. The Batman itself, a lot of gadgets, obviously uses bats every once in a while. You gotta have bats every once in a while. Alfred is a must, of course.
Alfred's the man.
Yep.
Always.
The Batcave's got to look fucking awesome. I love the good-looking Batcaves.
Even, like, the most modern, like, no matter what depiction you see, like, whether it's comics or cartoons, usually not in the live-action ones, but there's always a huge Two-Face coin.
Yep.
Just a huge one. Which is
I will definitely get into.
It's like this one famous comic that he did that once, and it was like... Now every time you're in the back,
and there's just like a random dinosaur in the background.
there's always just random shit just in the background. That's like, how does he? Like, I know he's rich, but he's also not a time traveler. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but we'll get to that.
Oh, by the way, before question, speaking of something you said that reminded me, do you know what DC stands for?
Department of Comics.
Close, but no, you're not even close. That actually stands for, because their most popular series, when they started, before they were officially DC Comics, was Detective Comics. So...
Ew. That's what DC stands for?
Yeah, I heard that a while ago.
Oh, Batman.
And I actually, while you were talking about Batman and comics, I just looked it up to confirm it, to make sure I wasn't talking out of my ass. Yeah, so the most popular one was the Detective Comics series. There was Action Comics, but Superman wasn't as famous as Detective Comics. So
Fuck you, Superman. That'll be another whole thing.
you're lame.
And then the last thing I'd like to say about Batman is his relationship with Detective Gordon is very essential. That they have a good relationship and that Gordon's doing something. Robin's not so much is essential, but I'll talk about him later, I guess. But basically, that's my basic definition of Batman. And from then on, that's how I will analyze each movie, how accurate they are to portraying Batman.
I just realized we kind of like specified it to live action. We never said live action movie. Are you referring also to live action television shows, aka Gotham?
No.
No.
I am completely ignoring that show because it kind of sucks. I hate to admit it. I watch it every episode. Because I kind of don't like it.
When you said his relationship to Jim Gordon, and I was like, I know his relationship in this show Gotham is very different from the comics.
Yeah.
His relationship. Because if Jim Gordon was that close to Bruce Wayne, he would be an idiot if he didn't realize.
Exactly. That's one of the many flaws of that show. But no, I'm going to ignore that. I'm ignoring any standalone arcs. Or actually, I might kind of talk about them briefly. But I'm ignoring any other animated features. I'm ignoring the Arkham games. Sorry, people. I know everybody loves them.
Yeah, so this is just specifically for the blockbuster Batman movies. Another time, maybe we'll analyze further into, since we mostly focus on movies. Sometime we'll probably go and see like what's the best. Not even like, even if it's not comics, just in general, what's the best animated Batman movie, or just
because there's some good ones.
There's some great ones. Okay.
And maybe make some speculation on Batman vs. Superman. And so we'll get started with Batman 66.
Are you happy that it's called Batman vs. Superman, not Superman vs. Batman?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's alphabetical, but
I don't care.
Whatever.
That just makes him even better. He even beats Superman in the alphabet, so
yeah.
Fuck you, Clark.
Clark. So let's get started. I, just for the fucking excuse of it, decided to watch Batman 66. The 1966
Adam West, everybody.
Adam West Batman movie. I thought it was a great excuse. I'd completely forgotten it existed, and I thought it'd be a great excuse to watch it for this whole thing. So this movie was made in between the first and second season of the Batman series. I don't know.
I never saw the movie, but I saw the series every once in a while. I saw a few episodes, and they were so great.
Yeah.
They were so fantastically bad.
Just goofy. Really goofy. All I have to say is, and since you haven't seen it, I'll just look at it. I mean, it's a classic family fun movie. It moves at a relatively good pace. As far as the Batman perspective, it does nail to the nose his gadgets. Absolutely. I mean, that's great. He has so many gadgets. I mean, he literally has a bat repellent. He spent, though there's parts in this movie that are just so ridiculous, that's why I don't like it as a Batman movie. Mm-hmm. Gordon's almost absent completely. Robin's annoying as fuck, and he's not highly intelligent. He basically walks around a bumbling idiot, Batman, most of the time. So yeah, Batman 66 as a whole was a lot of fun, plenty of gadgets. He spends like the first 15 minutes of a movie fighting a shark off of his leg, like just punching the most fake-looking shark ever, just beating it over the head. He gets a bat repellent, and I shit you not. All right, he gets a shark repellent tossed down from him from Robin. Robin tosses it down from the bat copter, whatever. He grabs it, shoots, he sprays the shark. The shark lets go. Once the shark hits the surface of the ocean, it explodes. I swear to God.
Yes.
It explodes. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? This movie is so ridiculous, it's never going to explain that. It's just going to say, that's what things do. That's what sharks do. When they hit the water, they explode.
Maybe the shark repellent was just nitroglycerin. And it was just, he just sprayed it on him, and the shark was getting too shaky or fancy.
So I was just thinking that was so funny. But they later explain it, that it was some Joker and Riddler and Penguin all together, like, making some exploding sharks. It was so ridiculous. So that actually reminds me, I want to keep this going throughout the rest of the movie. I'm going to kind of count a kill count. Because that's another thing that I should have mentioned before that Batman needs to do to be a good Batman movie is not kill. It seems hard to do, and you always want to.
And even in the comics, he's killed a lot.
He's killed, yeah, but he can do it. He can not kill people. He's supposed to be highly intelligent. He's supposed to plan this shit out, and a lot of times people just think that the ultimate villain's supposed to die at the end. But with a Batman movie, he can't. He should not, because Batman should figure this stuff out. So and that regularly gets gets disregarded in the movies. So that's the thing. I'm gonna keep up a casualty count. Now I didn't notice that many casualties in Batman 66, except for the poor shark. So the casualty count is at 1. And
there you go, Peter.
Yeah, sorry about that. And we'll be moving on now to a legendary Batman 1989. And Max, why don't you talk about? I mean, this should be a gift for you, because this is a great filmmaker for filmmakers to talk about.
Tim Burton. Even though you've fallen flat in the past years, I still love you. And even though you're the poster child for goth backpacks that always seem to have something about you on there, it was still a cool depiction. It was such a break to do such a mainstream type movie for Tim Burton. Even though a lot of his movies now are mainstream, but he did movies that were so out there and so quirky. They were you wouldn't expect him to take such a mainstream thing that everybody knows, such as Batman. Even he was still famous then, just because he hadn't really had many movies since '66. He was still really famous, so it was nice to see kind of that cinematography, that super gothic cinematography.
It's the first time Batman was given a really dark taste. I mean, that was the first time.
Dark. That was fucking dark.
Yeah, it was dark, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought both movies were really great. They were a little over the top at some parts. Some parts, just some of the character moves didn't make sense. I don't know, some moves that the Joker did and some moves that Batman did just were such a 1 in a million chance that they would be successful, and you're just all right, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jack Nicholson is great.
Fantastic.
As great as the Joker, but one thing and we'll get to this about Heath Ledger's Joker that I liked better, is the same reason that, this is kind of sidetracking, same reason that Stephen King didn't like the adaptation of The Shining, the Stanley Kubrick Shining, because Jack Nicholson's already crazy. He is already, for the longest time, been known as the crazy actor. So casting him as somebody in The Shining, he's supposed to be a normal guy and get down the road of craziness. He does not do that at all in The Shining. You just kind of assume, it's Jack Nicholson. He's gonna be the fucking crazy guy. Same with Joker. He's supposed to be in this version a bad guy, but he's not supposed to be a fucking cartoon character. And
right.
every performance by Jack Nicholson's kind of cartoony. So he's turns into a cartoon character, and he's already you just assume he's crazy. He's just supposed to be a bad thug mobster guy.
Well, that, if you don't mind me interrupting, that brings me to my Batman kind of problem with this movie. Not many Batman problems with this movie. Great movie, of course. Mm-hmm. Hits a lot of things on the nose, but I really don't like how they messed with the Joker origin. And a lot of people that are big Batman fans would be pissed that you gave Joker any origin. He's supposed to be somewhat of an enigma. And I know that's Riddler. Enigma. I know. He's supposed to be somewhat of an enigma. He doesn't have an origin story. You're not supposed to know about his past because it gives him too much of an explanation. But when he's being reduced to a simple thug, I kind of got bummed about that. But, of course, Jack Nicholson did a great, charismatic bad guy who is also just homicidal. Mm-hmm. So I like that about as far as a Batman perspective.
He did hit the charisma and everything like that. That was great. So yeah, Alfred was the same in all 4, from the Tim Burton to the Schumacher Batmans. He was the same actor who played Alfred and Jim Gordon. I think that was those are some of the few actors that kind of carried over. Billy D. Williams plays Harvey Dent. He was supposed to eventually, if Tim Burton continued to make a trilogy, he was gonna make the third one with Two-Face, with Billy D. Williams playing Two-Face. But, obviously, they did have Two-Face in the next one, but it wasn't Tim Burton. So, the first movie was great, pretty on point with visuals and with the style.
I really like how they portrayed Gotham. I mean, Gotham looked great in the first 1989 version. I guess I read something that they were trying to take influence from the look of Gotham as far as post No Man's Land. And if anybody is really up and up on the Batman comics, No Man's Land takes place when Gotham is plunged into a deep like earthquake, and Batman basically, you know, the cops are just in nothing. They can't do anything. Batman's basically got to reclaim his city, and it's extremely hard because everybody's just in disarray. So it would have been really cool if they did that. They ended up scrapping that idea, but I just thought it'd be interesting to mention.
I think that was part of the influence to the story of Dark Knight Rises, I'm pretty sure. Some part of it was...
I'm sure, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. Batman Returns was good. Cool continuation where it left off. I remember the beginning has some weird... He has, like, reflectors that get the bat signal right blaring in his face. I don't know if that was just for the visuals, just for the movie and the audience, but I think that'd be the most fucking obnoxious thing ever.
Yeah.
It'd be obnoxious, and it'd be, hey, everybody, I'm Batman. Look at the bat signal literally on my house, in my face.
In my face.
So it wasn't the most genius thing for the world's greatest detective to do. One thing that I got to talk about, armor, or the bat suit. So the suit in both of these movies, it changes a little, but both of them, as far as costume design goes, were kind of weird. I remember the first one was just kind of like dirty. It just looked dirty and like stained. It looked like there was like fingerprints on it or something like that. I don't know. It just looked awkward, but it just didn't really look too clean. And then with Batman Returns, it was kind of a different. It had a little bit of an armor influence to it, which looked cool.
Had that like really like rigid looking thing, to it. like robot abs.
Yeah,
robot abs.
Yeah, it was weird.
I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, robot abs. Bruce Wayne had robot abs in that one, but I didn't like it. Just kind of took away the power that Batman has just as a character in the movie when he just ripped off his mask like it was nothing. Like, okay,
yeah, that's something that I definitely
impractical.
Talk about.
Just even if it wasn't based off of a comic book, it would just seem impractical for a character to have something like that when he's supposed to have armor on.
Right. And that's the thing that was going to lead me to, in general, the Michael Keaton portrayal of in Batman Returns and the 1989 Batman.
Acting wise, it was decent.
Yeah,
Michael Keaton's awesome always. So he was great as just from an actor's standpoint. Michael Keaton just nailed it like always because he could always do the just the distant guy.
He's not a bad actor, and I understand that, but. For me, there are certain essentials that I needed in the Batman movie that just weren't there. It didn't really seem like he ever thought about it. There was one scene in Batman 1989 where he walks down Crime Alley, puts like a flower where his parents were killed, and that shows him broken up. But for the rest of the movie, he never really mentions it. He mentions it once, I should say, in Batman Returns when he talks about Oswald Cobblepot trying to find, who's the Penguin, trying to find his parents, and he says, like, I hope he finds his parents. Obviously, he can relate to that. There's a lot of stuff, though, that I didn't like with Michael Keaton. He just had this quirkiness, and I gotta say, as a Bruce Wayne, I don't think Michael... Crazy. I don't think... You wanna say nuts? You wanna say nuts? Let's get nuts!
That's such a Michael Keaton moment, just the way he handled it. Wanna see nuts? With his, like, kind of lisp. So great.
So, but... as a whole, he was a good Bruce, like very quiet and reserved. Not a great Bruce Wayne, not really a good playboy, didn't seem suave with his women, even though he was supposed to be. But yeah, whatever. He was an okay Batman, too. The thing I really didn't enjoy about Batman Returns, they messed up Penguin's origin story. Catwoman was fantastic. Michelle Pfeiffer is Catwoman. In the first and second...
Oh, yeah, she was great.
Yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer, amazing actress.
She was terrifyingly good. Like, she was creepy. She made Catwoman look just in general creepy.
Yeah. But yeah, like what you had said about the Batman, he takes off his mask. Well, first of all, he reveals his identity to Vicky Vale in 1989, in 1989 one. Then he reveals his identity to Selena Kyle playing Catwoman in the second one. That's two big things that he's just supposed to never do. And so that takes away...
such a trust thing for him.
That takes away a Batman thing for me again, And then the last thing I'd like to say before moving on about those two, and it's going to carry on to the next two actually, is the lack of Gordon. Gordon is just kind of like a bumbling fat police commissioner, and it's kind of very depressing, to be honest, because as you can see in the Dark Knight trilogy, Gordon becomes so great. So that's why I was really bummed out about that. But now
one thing I want to say about Dark Knight, or fucking I keep on Batman Returns. The one thing I want to say about Batman Returns,
the Dark Knight comes back again.
The one scene I love, just that always stands out, is the insane tension building when Selena Kyle gets murdered by her boss.
That's like a Tarantino-esque.
That was so good, because it's just this. Your heart is pounding the entire scene, and he just. It's so creepy and terrifying, and the whole movie is so terrifying. Actually, the McDonald's was. This is a little fun fact for this movie. McDonald's had a toy line ready for Batman Returns. Like, they had everything set up, the toys and everything, and then they saw the actual movie. Like, the heads of McDonald's saw the movie, and they immediately canceled it because it was so dark and so. Like, I think somebody said something about the second that penguin bit a guy's nose was the second they canceled the toy line.
Yeah.
And yeah, just all of that. The ending was so again, this is not, I don't know how comic book accurate this was, but the whole ending with Selena Kyle and kind of like, spoiler alert, it's been out forever, so Selena Kyle just sacrificing herself like that was so just well written. The whole movie, you really care about like all of these characters. That was one thing that Tim Burton really got was.
Well, Catwoman dies, and then Penguin dies, and then in the first one, Joker dies, in the 89 version, and I was going to mention this a little bit before, but we've kind of gone back and forth between 89 and Batman Returns. Batman doesn't necessarily kill Joker, but he definitely sets him up for death, let's just say. So I can't really count it as a kill, but I will. There's a scene where he's climbing the tower in the 1989 Batman, trying to save Vicky Vale. One of the thugs peeks his head out over the drop of the whole tower going down, and you just see Batman's legs come up, grab the guy by the neck, hit him on the bell, and then he just flings him down the tower. Batman kills a dude. Straight up kills a guy.
Just straight up murder.
Just does that. Knew what he was doing and killed him. And so we're gonna count 1989. That's another casualty from Batman. So now he's got two. He's got two under his belt now.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna count Joker. I guess I won't count it, even though it was pretty damn close that he pretty much killed that guy.
Yeah.
And and there was another one where he's like in a factory and he basically just like tosses grenades in there and just drives away, and the factory just explodes behind him. How many people were in that factory? And then in Batman Returns, right in the beginning, he's doing his fist bumping thing, and then hops in his Batmobile, and there's some guy behind him, and he revs the engine so a big plume of fire lights him on fire, and then drives off. Like, no, like, fire extinguisher or knock him out or anything. He drives off with a guy on fire. So
we got arson.
Batman's killing a bunch of dudes so far.
Arson.
I'd like to say that so far I'd hold up 1989 Batman as up there as so far the best Batman portrayal. But of course we haven't gotten to the rest yet, so we'll do that now, because we've tackled 66, 89,
I don't really have much else
and Batman
for
Returns.
Batman Returns.
So then we come to one of my childhood personal favorites.
Batman fucking Forever. That was a great movie.
Baby, I'll compare you to a kiss from a rose on the way. Ooh. You weren't going to join me in now? I was hitting it perfectly, I think. That's a great song, by the way.
That was a fantastic song.
I think it actually just won an award.
That whole, of course, yeah, because it's one of the greatest songs ever. It's such a awesome, cheesy song. That entire soundtrack has nothing to do with the entire movie, but it's all great pop songs.
Does not get a kiss from a rose. He does not.
These stupid, cheesy pop songs from that era, and they have nothing to do with the story whatsoever, but they're all great. It's so funny. They had the Smashing Pumpkins song that there was the one they had in Watchmen. I think that was the beginning is the end is the beginning, And the version they had in Batman Forever was the end is the beginning is the end.
What?
I don't know. The name of the song is something along the lines of that. And
What is ending and what is beginning?
No idea. Smashing Pumpkins are weird, but they're great. And that song is like this like fast-paced rock song. And then they redid it for Watchmen because it was such a dark movie. Yeah, so they had that version. It was just so
but either way,
slow and
either
drab.
way, I always remember gearing up for watching Batman Forever when I was a kid. And they always had the commercial for the soundtrack, and
So
the
good.
soundtrack that they always highlighted "Kiss from a Rose" by Seal. So they're playing clips of that song, and Batman's like shooting through the tunnels and going on the Batwing. So it's gonna be really hard for me, but I'm gonna try to distance myself, nostalgic wise, from this movie. But I'm gonna try. But I just want to say that song is awesome.
It was.
So I'm going to look at it right now. I'm going to try to basically analyze this movie, and I'm going to keep it separate from Batman and Robin because it doesn't deserve to be put next to it, let's just say.
Shout out to Seal.
Yeah, Seal's a man. Just don't ever show your face anywhere. It's disgusting. Nobody wants to see
I don't know.
it.
Have you seen his wife? Isn't he married to like?
Yeah, he's married to like a model or something.
Yeah. So
But
clearly he serenaded her with
yeah,
"Kiss from a
Kiss
Rose."
From a Rose. And she was like, yeah.
He just had like one of those old guitars, just like outside her window, and just sang.
Baby, you know how it goes.
Yeah.
So it starts off very cool, very Tim Burton-esque, even though he wasn't involved in this.
He produced it.
Yeah, he was a producer.
Schumacher was the director for this one.
Yeah, and very animated, and a lot of people like to say the Tim Burton's ones were really dark, but I like to think this one was pretty dark too. Starts
There's a
off
moderate amount of darkness. It wasn't
Yeah.
like over the top like
it
Tim Burton
it
dark.
started getting more family friendly, and I understand
Yeah.
that, but I still like it a lot. And then it started off with Two-Face, and I thought Tommy Lee Jones did an okay job at Two-Face. As much as he was a great actor in the movie, you'll get into that. His Two-Face portrayal, I think, was kind of a little too Joker-esque. Like, it was too much Joker. Anyways, it starts off with that, the whole heist. Batman swoops in, talks to Gordon a little bit. That whole relationship is a little stronger in this movie. Not much, though. Gordon's still pretty absent. And then, of course, we're introduced to the one and only Chase Meridian.
Chase Meridian.
One of the horniest freaking Batman characters ever, I swear to God.
Nicole Kidman was crazy in this movie. She just wanted it. The entire movie. I don't
understand her. But
so unnecessary.
It was so ridiculously very, very sexualized. What was her first lines? Hot entrance, like immediately, and Batman looks at her like, "Who's this crazy? Who's this crazy bitch?"
He just kind of swoops in, and then she says that, and he doesn't like respond. He just kind of looks at her and goes, yes. Anyway, detective work.
Preparing
I need to
himself
do that.
to be violated by her. I feel like
He just takes a quick step back, just like, anyway.
So then he goes on. He troops Two-Face. He gets his ass kicked, but he does a good job. I like how Michael Keaton. He's got a good deep Batman voice, whatever. But I like how Val Kilmer had a deep voice too, and that he did his little quips here or there, like he was just very nonsensical, trying to save this frantic guy from inside of a vault of boiling acid.
The guy is hilarious.
It's boiling acid. All right, like
he's
first of all,
so over the top.
how is he
everything.
qualified enough to know what boiling acid looks like? That's what I want to know.
I don't know.
He's just a cop.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I guess.
But anyway,
glad
he's
does,
in the
if I were
midst-
the cop. He's clearly more qualified to be a cop than I am.
Yeah.
So I'd just be like, oh, hey, it's just water, and I'd just be like, I'm thirsty anyway, and then
you'd be dead.
I'd be dead. Yeah.
So he's trying to save this guy, and Val Kilmer's just like, hold on. And you're like just so dead. But it's perfect to Batman, in my opinion, because he's very business when he's in the suit. He's very business, and that's how it should have been. The thing that's definitely more evident in this one was the portrayal of how twisted and torn Bruce Wayne was as a person about his parents dying and stuff like that. And Max, I'm sure you could shed some light on the cool cinematography of the flashback scenes. I think that's what I noticed.
Those were cool. They were really like, they were like an actual like brain would be working. They are very brief. There's not a lot of detail in the flashbacks. They're always like very foggy and very like,
and just these rough images.
Yeah, they're not. They're like really. They're like frame by frame slow motion. They're always just kind of like this choppy slow motion that kind of like makes you think, if you're thinking of a haunting memory, you're not gonna be thinking of it clear as day, just like this perfect vision. That was really cool how they just made everything so basic in the one part he's just thinking about a bat. He's just thinking about a bat for some reason. I don't know. He's haunted by the bats. And
I mean, that's great. If you look at the comics, that's the way he is. It almost becomes a point that he kind of gets off on it. It's kind of freaky. Like, he gets off on the fact that he's saving people. He's cursed by this bat. There's a point in one of the comics, The Dark Knight Returns, that Frank Miller comic, very big and famous, and there's a point that at which he is really beaten and torn and is kind of disillusioned and doesn't remember why he's doing it, and he walks down to the Batcave and he looks into the depths of the Batcave, and the bat comes at him and he says, "You're not done with me. You're never done with me." You know, like he has this constant bond or curse with the Batman, and he's never gonna not be Batman. Mm-hmm. And I think that the Batman Forever really made this powerful and really made that like stand out. Everybody talks about how amazing Batman 1989 was and Batman Returns, but in my opinion, it didn't really show that part, and that's what I really liked about Batman Forever.
Yeah. One line I'd like to point out then, for also being like kind of haunted in his past, when Dick Grayson,
oh God, Chris O'Donnell.
When Chris O'Donnell's Dick Grayson, when he gets killed, who nobody likes, but when his family gets killed, he says something to Alfred like, "They killed my parents," and then Alfred's like, "What?" And he goes, "I said they killed his parents," and then Alfred goes, "No, you said they killed my parents," and that was such a subtle thing that everyone forgets about. That movie portrays how haunted he is. That's another reason that movie replays kind of his origin story a little bit. They do it very weirdly and very broadly about his origin story. It was just to emphasize how haunted he is by his parents' death. It's
definitely.
It was so I liked it a lot. Like, some people complain that we get too many origin stories of his. You know, they're a few years apart. They were different. They were the same series, but it served a different purpose for that second origin story. And obviously, we'll get to this later, but obviously a movie called Batman Begins is gonna have an origin story with the word literal begins in the title. So some people complained about that, and I was like, whatever. It's not like Spider-Man, where it's like less than a decade later, and they're doing another full-blown origin movie. So
we have Riddler and Two-Face in this one. We talked briefly about Two-Face. I think as a comics book, he was a little bit too out there and cartoonish. Mm. I thought the use of the pistol was great. I thought the makeup was fantastic, to be honest. A little goofy, a little cartoonish again, but that's the whole movie. Riddler, I thought they did a great job on. You know, everybody's going to talk about Jim Carrey, but I don't know what you would think as Max as far as Jim Carrey kind of trying to remove himself as being Jim Carrey and playing more of a Riddler. What did you think of Jim Carrey as Riddler?
It was cool to see him because every movie that Jim Carrey's in, he's one of those actors that's like the lead actor in so many movies. And Tommy Lee Jones is, yeah, he's a better actor than Jim Carrey, but he really is, he's not known as always being the lead guy. He could be the side actor or the supporting role in a lot of different movies. And Jim Carrey, this is one of the few movies where Jim Carrey's not the center of attention. He's relatively just a supporting character, and he's super goofy and super quirky, like normal Jim Carrey. But you know, it was a decent performance just in general. You know, he played Enigma, Edward Nygma, pretty decently. And one thing that I gotta say, this isn't really related to the movie, but I love how every movie, cartoon, comic, whatever, that involves Batman thinking about Riddler's alter ego, it's always Edward Nygma, and then he pauses for 2 seconds and goes, Enigma. Like every single time. So many cartoons, so many comics.
Well, that is the thing.
So many movies. I think it's so funny, though. It's like every time, it's always the same, though. It's not always like, it's nobody else saying Enigma. It's always Batman going, Edward Nygma, Enigma.
Yeah.
And looking at the camera going, oh.
Wink, wink.
What a clever
I
name.
really this
His parents set him up to be a supervillain with the name
Oh,
Edward
yeah.
Nygma.
this origin story, as a Batman perspective, was set up perfectly, because Riddler has a few different origin stories, but the origin story that I like the most is that he was working for Wayne Tech, and he was basically like a strategist for Wayne Tech. He's a mastermind. He brought the Wayne Company after Thomas and Martha Wayne died. He brought the company back to its height, to when Bruce Wayne was able to come back to it. And it kind of shows that he did this in Batman Forever. It shows that he's a mastermind, he worked for Wayne Corporation, and that he was underappreciated, and that's how he started. And I thought it was a really well done origin story, at least. And you almost feel on his side. You almost feel like he's every right to be pissed at Bruce Wayne, and Bruce Wayne has every right to reject his kind of crazier ideas, but at the same time. So that's what I liked about this movie.
It's not helped by the relatively cliche businessman looking at him and going, "You're crazy, Nygma." I'm not calling him by his last name. "You're crazy, Nygma. I'm never gonna fund this project," or whatever.
Bruce Wayne seems genuinely interested in his projects.
He does.
Wants to do them. Then Edward says he needs more time. He needs to do it quickly. And Batman says, or Bruce Wayne, sorry. Bruce Wayne says, I can't do it this time. It's human trials. It's involved with something that I don't feel comfortable with. But as Bruce Wayne's intellect is showing through, he sees the schematics. He sees the potential behind these projects, and he does see the benefit. But he just doesn't think it's very founded on some good practices. So naturally he rejects it. Naturally Edward Nygma gets a little goofy and crazy, a little power hungry, and decides to become the Riddler. And in doing so, decides to team up with Two-Face because he knows he doesn't have enough muscle to take on Gotham. And very naturally so. And that's kind of what brings us to the climax of the movie, Batman fighting Two-Face and Riddler.
I gotta know something. You really did skip over Robin, just in general, in this movie. Kind of skipped over.
I'm just skipping him in general.
Batman fights Two-Face and Riddler at the end. Oh yeah.
No.
Robin's there. He just happens.
I didn't say it ended completely. I did like how they did the Dick Grayson story. I don't mind Chris O'Donnell in this one. I guess I keep thinking of Batman and Robin.
He's less of a turd in this one.
He's definitely less of a turd in this one. He's got a good origin story, and he definitely has this really strong vendetta towards the person that killed his parents, Two-Face, which is very true and very understandable. And Bruce Wayne can relate to this because obviously, he had his parents killed by a criminal too. So that kind of relationship is very interesting. Dick Grayson as a whole, I don't mind Chris O'Donnell as Dick Grayson. I think he was a little old for the time. Dick Grayson's supposed to be a little bit younger.
Yeah.
But I understand what they did, and I very much I would like to say incomparable to that. On top of that, I guess I should say. That reminds me of Val Kilmer's portrayal of Batman, which is really the most important part of what we're talking about. This movie had pretty much all, and I love that.
Prime Val Kilmer.
I gotta say,
Val Kilmer was...
when everybody didn't blacklist Val Kilmer. As far as a Batman movie, Val Kilmer did a really good job of being a very quiet and reserved Bruce Wayne, but torn inside as well. He did a great at being intelligent because he had to figure out a lot of Riddler's gimmicks and clues and stuff as he was putting them throughout the city, and he was showing his intelligence. He showed his intelligence. He showed his torn side. He showed his suave side when he was fraternizing with the public. And he was a good Batman. I really think Val Kilmer did a really great job as Batman, and everybody will yell at me and say Michael Keaton was better, but I really thought he did a good job.
I thought he was good. From the based off of the character that I know, you're the comic book guy, you know Bruce Wayne better, but just from what I hear, he's supposed to be split, and as just from an outside perspective of somebody who doesn't read the comics like crazy, I know he does good at being split, at being like a 3-personality kind of guy. Shout out to Arkham Sessions for referring to him as 3 different people, not just Bruce Wayne and Batman. That's where I mostly heard this, but he is good at being A, haunted, B, suave for the public, and C, Batman.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, they're
completely stern and shuts off. Like you said, the guy's the freaking out policeman right at the beginning. He just looks at him and just says, "Hold on," and just does his business. That's such a Batman thing to do.
And then so I really appreciated that. He had plenty of gadgets. The Batcave looked awesome. Batcave looked great. Alfred was great, as he always was in the last few films. Plenty of gadgets. Robin was there. A lot of great things that mark on what Batman did. Now, in the end, again, I'm going to have to do this casualty count. He straight kills Two-Face. He straight kills him. I mean, maybe not straight
he's
kills him.
He's going for a distraction.
Maybe not, but it's like, what else was he going to do? He's in a pit. Two-Face is standing on, like, a beam, and he throws a bunch of coins in the air, and Two-Face falls to his death. That, to me, is a murder. That, to me, I'm sorry. It's a damn murder. It's close. It's more of a murder than Joker's murder, but it's less of a murder than that dude with the bell. Like, that's a straight murder. But it's pretty damn close. So, that's a little bit sort of adds to our casualty count. Not as Batman, but as far as Gotham looked incredible in this one again. A little
cool
too
statues.
A little too cartoonish. I saw a lot of critics.
Too grounded in that.
I saw a lot of cartoonists that said, or critics that said it was a little too much for me, like the big ass statues and crazy huge things. I can agree with them on that. Gotham looked great. The thugs looked awesome for some reason or another. Everybody apparently that's a criminal has to wear glow sticks all the time and constantly be raving. I love that part. I don't know. I enjoyed that part. But it's very Tim Burton-esque, but obviously it's more Joel Schumacher on this case. But as a whole, I really think Batman Forever, in my opinion, is better Batman portrayal than 1989 Batman.
One thing I gotta say, speaking of the town of Gotham, the one thing I missed for the Tim Burton one that I'll just mention now, Joel Schumacher obviously had his own vision with the neon and the kind of giant statues. Something that kind of turned into a staple of Tim Burton's that he put a lot into in this, whereas like movies like Edward Scissorhands were very colorful and very bright and like picturesque, but Gotham in this one is based off of the German cinematography of the old 1920s silent movies that came out of Germany, like Nosferatu or...
I did not know that. That's very cool.
This is where his style with the big buildings that like loom over and they're always pointed, and if you see the movie Castle of Dr. Caligari, I want to say, I'll link that in the link dump. You'll see a lot of it'll just remind you of Gotham right there because of how, I don't know, it's just this big kind of fantastical kind of sharp, everything's sharp and pointed and looms over. The buildings kind of lean towards the different alleyways, and they look like they bend and they twist. So that's what I liked about Gotham. It has a very messed up, on top of itself look.
It looks like broken glass. And it's just all over itself, overlapping, very tall and skinny buildings. And that's what I liked. And I think that the Tim Burton, Joel Schumacher movies really did a good job on it, specifically Batman Forever. And that leads us to the steaming shit pile of Batman and Robin.
I don't know. This movie, I can't even joke. This movie was horrible. It was a really bad movie.
It's a really bad movie.
It was very lazy. Which
it's Joel Schumacher,
like I've mentioned before on the show, I don't like.
Finishing. There's
no such thing as bad art. Movies are art. There's no such thing as bad art. This movie was a bad movie because it's not art. It's a product. It was lazy. It was rushed. It wasn't for the sake of making a movie and making this medium of art. It was for the money and because I'm not gonna say Joel Schumacher is like this evil, horrible guy just because he directed it. A lot of things went into account for that. I heard there's some unused. There's a lot of stuff that wasn't shot that was in. He wanted to make
but Max,
a version.
Max, George Clooney is in it. He's a great actor.
George Clooney was fantastic in it, wasn't he?
He had to have been good. He's a great actor. Tell me, Max, how good was he?
I heard he has a Batman suit hung up in his room to always remind himself never to do never to do a movie just for the paycheck.
Oh my god, that's great. I didn't know that.
I don't know if that's true fact. I saw it on Jeopardy. It was like, which actor has a Batman suit hung up on their wall to remind them not to do.
That's a Jeopardy? It has to be true.
I saw it. Well, yeah, I mean...
It has to be.
And they immediately... Obviously, they got it right. They're like, George Clooney. That's definitely George Clooney. So, like I said, apparently Joel Schumacher's actual vision was...
But Max, Uma Thurman's in that. She's okay. She has to have made it good. Actually,
she was the most interesting part.
She's probably the only interesting part. Yeah. I will give her that. And non-sarcastically.
Yeah, I mean, she was super over the top, but she just owned it. You could tell she was just like, this character's stupid. It was written horribly. I'm just gonna overact like crazy. Just and Arnold Schwarzenegger's just like, this is how I act all the time. So that's why he was
chill out.
Hey, everybody, chill.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age.
There was I saw on IMDb, Mr. Freeze says 27 ice puns throughout the movie.
27. You think they would have stopped at 3?
One thing I want to say about this movie, this is apparently it's the only live action movie where the love interest of Bruce Wayne doesn't find out who Batman is. Because it's just this
I was gonna say that, but yeah, you're right.
Nobody thinks of it. Right. Nobody thinks of her because she's a nothing character that I think says 4 lines.
And also she's kind of crazy, dude. She I think at one point she admits that she doesn't want him to take off the suit. Like she wants him to keep it on. Well,
that's Chase Meridian.
They bang Chase Meridian. Oh, Batman and
Chase
Batman
Meridian
and
finds out. Right. I think at the very end.
Chase Meridian does find out again. So that's 3 movies in a row that the love interest finds out who Batman is.
So the best part about Batman and Robin basically is that she doesn't. The leading lady does not find out.
She is nobody.
She's nobody.
I don't even know her name.
I don't know her name. I don't know her character's name. I think it's just like a nothing supermodel that was supposed to emphasize Bruce Wayne, who he is.
Yeah.
And she has 4 lines in the movie. I don't even remember if she has important parts. But, she doesn't even get the treatment, the Mary Jane treatment from the Spider-Man movies of getting kidnapped and putting up for hostage or something.
So for you as a filmmaker, this must be an absolute utter disappointment to see someone like George Clooney completely ruin something. I mean, it's hard for him to do bad, but there he goes. This is the seminal movie. They showed, I remember, this is kind of off on a tangent, but they were showing an award ceremony that was a benefit of George Clooney. They showed all of the movies he's been in. Every single movie that he's ever played in. Not a single clip of Batman and Robin was showed. I shit you not.
It's such a blacklisted movie. It's there was totalitarian governments. They would blacklist certain works of art, and this is it in America. The only blacklisted film is because everyone in America is Batman's the greatest, but that movie is the worst.
Yeah, I hate to say it, so I don't know if you got any other filmmaker's perspective, but I would love to go off on how terrible it. Well,
there was one thing I thought was the greatest pun ever because it was so great placed, and it was the only pun that character says, I'm pretty sure. Actually, no, he says some horrible puns. But the one pun that was the greatest was a throwback, because it was a throwback to, it was when, actually, I'm not sure if this was Batman Forever or Batman and Robin, when Robin, they're at the evil lair, and Robin says, "Holy rusted metal, Batman!" Which is a throwback to the old.
This is on Batman Forever.
That was Batman.
And that's
Forever.
why it makes Batman Forever even better. All right, that was great. No, and
you think, yeah.
What does he say?
You think he says holy rusted metal, Batman, and he goes, "What? That was the stupidest thing you could have said." And he goes, "No, the rusted metal has holes in it. Holy rusted metal." And he's not even meaning to be a joke. He says, "No, look, there's metal and it has holes in it."
It's so great. It's so great. I love that line, to be honest.
That line's so great. It's perfect. What do you think, as a fan of the comics, how well do you think the idea was for the love interest in Batman Forever? Again, going back to Batman Forever, how well do you think the idea is of the love interest being a psychologist or psychiatrist?
I do like that. I like that.
I feel like that's perfect for...
Yes, I did like that a lot. And again, this should be another shout out to Arkham Sessions, because that's what they do. We have the one, Dr. Andrea Latamanti, brilliant. She's awesome, has some really cool insight on Batman. Brian Ward. Brian Ward's the geek, and Andrea Latamanti's the psychologist, and they look at every episode of Batman the Animated Series on a very psychological standpoint. So that's what reminds me of the coolness of how Chase Meridian is a psychologist. I do like that because there's so much to talk about as far as Batman being a psychological lesson or a psychological mess, basically, and all the people that he has to deal with. Two-Face, potential multi-personality disorder, Riddler with maybe a god complex, maybe superiority complex. All these, his rogues gallery, Joker, Catwoman, they all have their own mental disabilities, or not disabilities, mental disorders or dysfunctions, and there's so much to talk about. So it's really appropriate that his love interest is a psychologist. So I did like that fact.
With a cool name.
As much as Chase Meridian is a very cool name, actually. So I just thought it was a little overacted by Nicole Kidman. but it was...
You mean perfectly acted.
Yeah. It was...
Hot entrance.
It was an interesting character, that's for sure. But yeah.
One thing that I heard was not very comic book accurate was when Two-Face was like super pissed at the end. He's like, I want to just kill Batman, and he flips his coin and it says no, and he says, and he just tries to reflip it until it says yes. Isn't that like, doesn't he just automatically say, all right, that's what the thing said?
Yes.
That's what the thing said. I won't kill him. Isn't that?
No, you're right. He is very he's very drawn and basically bound by the flip of the coin. He's not so bent on killing Batman that he would flip his coin multiple times. I honestly think that he would flip his coin once, and if it said no, he would not have done it.
He'd be pissed, but he'd be like, I have to.
Yeah, he would say he'd have to. He'd find a way to not kill Batman. Just at that instance. Of course, he would find an opportunity to make it to a point that he'd flip that coin again. But he is very bound by the coin now. That's like the symbol of his duality as a personality. He's very messed up by that. So I did think that was a big contradiction to Two-Face's character, or should have been character. But, like I said, every movie, what I kind of want to get eventually to is getting to a point that all the live action films have not really been a very complete Batman movie. He's killed people. The characters have not been very true to their origin story, blah, blah. I'll get to that later. But in this one, Two-Face screws up, and this is a good lead into what we were just talking about with Batman and Robin. This is my Batman perspective on Batman and Robin. Holy shit, do they screw up on origin stories. Every single character. I mean, they allude to them slightly, but everyone is terrible, Ivy is messed up. She's what? She just gets knocked into a vat of her plants and just gets...
She fell. She tripped in her garden. And
how does that make any goddamn sense? They make Bane into some hulking idiot just by like the poison.
He's a skateboarder, Nick.
He's a skateboarder.
He's a skateboarder.
All right. So Bane is, according to the comics, is supposed to be a highly intelligent criminal.
But of course,
they touch on that in Dark Knight Returns or Rises for sure. He's supposed to be a very highly intelligent killer, mercenary, criminal, and they reduce him to a skateboarder. Poison Ivy is supposed to be a very intelligent botanist who is really for the animals and the plants, and she gets screwed over by the Wayne technology so many times, so she decides to go against them.
She does once in the movie.
That's very appropriate. She does, but her transformation into Ivy is very dumb.
Yeah,
Mr. Freeze is, I guess, sorta done right, but I mean, the origin story is all there.
Let's be specific. The origin story is
the origin story is all there, but it's just Mr. Freeze is Victor Freeze, as he was a renowned doctor and scientist, and very intelligent and thoughtful.
And the governor of California.
You don't go from a very intelligent doctor or scientist to saying, "Hey, everybody, chill out." You don't do that. And that's why I thought it was so terrible. If you get a chance to read the comics or watch Batman the Animated Series, I know I'm committing a crime here by talking about the Batman the Animated Series when we told specifically that we're going not to, but watch it because Batman Freeze's origin story, and that is like Emmy winning. It is very, very good. Heart of Ice, that's the episode name.
It could have. I really know this is shocking to hear, but Mr. Freeze could have been worse. I'm reading right now on IMDb that Joel Schumacher's first choice to play Mr. Freeze was Hulk Hogan. So I think we should count our blessings with Arnold Schwarzenegger, because at least he's fun and goofy.
We're about to get Frozen in here, yeah!
Hulk Hogan's just annoying.
Yeah.
So, third choice. Oh, I apologize. It was Joel Schumacher's third choice. I don't know how he could have led to that. How could that be your third choice?
I don't know.
Let alone your first.
Joel Schumacher made a lot of bad decisions.
He made a lot of bad decisions, but he does blame. He apologized for all of that because he does blame a lot of it on the producers kind of pushing him to make toys. That's a lot of the reason that kind of the Transformer movies have kind of been subpar. Let's just say the least. They've been trying to make toys for all of them, and same with this Batman, because apparently Joel Schumacher really loved the movie doing Batman, even though this one he was pressured a lot, which is what turned it into a lazy piece of crap. And he really wanted to return, and they were gonna make a kind of Batman Year One-esque movie.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, based off of the comic. Isn't that also Frank Miller?
Yeah, Frank Miller did Batman Year One, basically a different version of Batman's origin story.
But they just
award-winning everything. It was incredible.
They just said we'll segue now since we've kind of torn that movie up.
It sucked.
Enough.
As far as a movie, it definitely sucked. I mean, it comes off the same vein as the Batman Forever
or Batman 66.
As far as a movie, it sucked, like I said. But as far as the same vein, it did come off as a Batman Forever, but it did a lot of things that committed a complete sin against the fact of Batman. Batman uses a credit card. He makes public appearances as Batman. It's just so many bad things as far as movie-wise as it a Batman. So it's automatically down there at the very bottom, even lower than Batman 66.
Where's the snowman? Maybe he's hibernating.
Get the hell out! Get the hell out of here! The gadgets were there,
that
yes.
Doesn't make any sense.
The gadgets were there, yes. But how the hell you can make George Clooney look dumb in a movie is beyond me. So let's move on to the great Christopher Nolan Batman Begins. We'll kind of lump them all three together, but Max, start us off on Batman Begins. Maybe you can...
To segue into that one, the best is to say Joel Schumacher was going to do Year One, so they knew they were going to reboot him because they were like, we just need to pretend like this never happened and just, we're ashamed, we're sorry. Let's just do an origin story with a brand new thing. Schumacher was even down for it. He's like, all right, let's do Year One. And they're like, no, definitely not you. Batman Begin had a lot of different directors thrown around before Chris Nolan was attached, which thank God he was attached because that's why he didn't have as much to do with the script on this one, but obviously his directing skill and his art skill was what was on it. The last thing I think he did before Batman Begins was Insomnia, which was a great, completely insanely underrated movie, but it just shows how directors can swap genres and still make it kind of great. Going off of what they originally had planned, they were going to have Darren Aronofsky do a Year One type movie, who a lot of people know Darren Aronofsky as doing Requiem for a Dream,
Pi,
3.141592.
Okay.
Yeah, he did. It was just a full 2.5 hour movie of him just saying Pi, just staring at a camera, just saying all the numbers. No, and there was a few directors kind of thrown around. Apparently, David Fincher was kind of considered to be a director, which would be cool. I haven't seen him really do a full-on action movie. He's kind of sticks with the heavy dialogue, heavy characters, and serial killers, which I guess would fit in Batman movies. A lot of psychological stuff would go. You could tell with David Fincher in the role, there would be a lot more to do with the psychological aspect of it. The Wachowskis, back when they were the Wachowski brothers, were considered to do kind of a take on it, but I think they were still continuing the Matrix series. So they eventually settled. Chris Nolan was definitely not the first choice. Even David S. Goyer, who helped write the script and wrote the script for all of the Batman, I think helped with all of the Batman movies, but only did like a few drafts. As the trilogy went on, he wrote less and less, I'm pretty sure. and he was originally going to direct also, but he kind of directed Blade Trinity. I'm pretty sure that got like horrible reviews, so they were like, no, it's either that or he was about to direct Blade Trinity. Either way.
But anyways, talking about Batman Begins as a film.
Batman Begins, from just the cinematography was great. Bruce Wayne traveling. Bruce Wayne, Christian Bale is just a fantastic actor who actually, Bruce Wayne auditioned for Robin in Batman Forever. I don't know if you knew that. Christian Bale.
You just were like,
Chris.
You said Bruce Wayne like Bruce Wayne's a real person. And
Bruce Wayne wanted to be Robin.
For a split second, I'm like...
Another split personality.
For a second, I'm thinking, Bruce Wayne's real. Bruce Wayne is real,
No
everybody.
way.
You've heard it here first.
That businessman.
Bruce Wayne is real, guys. But yes, Christian Bale
auditioned
for I think I did hear about that in Batman Forever.
Yeah,
which would have been interesting.
Christian Bale was
and would have changed completely. But I did like Christian Bale as Batman. Before I get into that, you want to finish?
Yeah, I mean he was a good actor at being just a lot of different things.
Talk about acting as the strong acting. Liam Neeson. I mean, God.
Liam Neeson was in it.
Neeson.
And he was just great. He was rocking the Ra's al Ghul beard.
Yep.
And they kind of threw you for a loop with Ken Watanabe. He's in a few Nolan movies, and he's a great go-to actor when it comes to he needs to be an American Japanese guy.
What do you think about the pacing? I love Christopher Nolan's pacing.
Was super freaking
it's
fast.
It's so
but
fast,
good.
like in all Christopher Nolan movies.
I read on IMDb that the average length of a shot was like 1.5 seconds.
That's crazy.
So obviously he's not a big long taker. He's not not very Alfonso Cuarón on this one. The fighting style was like not the fighting itself, like the whatever type of style they did, but the directing of the fighting was kind of in this one. There was super close up shots, which I understand for the first few fights. That makes total sense.
I gotta be honest, it was a little hard to keep track of some of the fighting scenes.
It was like I understand for like the first fight, because then it's like you're not getting the full reveal of Batman until this cool epic shot. But then every fight after that was this really quick, like it's chopping back and forth between somebody walking and Batman beating people up, and it's just really quick shots of each of them, and you don't even know he could just be dancing around and they just add sound effects and nobody would know because the shots are so tiny and so quick that it was just so I don't know. It was that was kind of the only. I'm sorry, Christopher Nolan.
As far as editing, so you're saying the editing was
editing
was a bit choppy.
Maybe
I can see that.
But other than that, that was Wally Feister was the cinematographer for all 3 Nolan Dark Knight movies, and he was originally gonna be the cinematographer for Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince before they announced they were gonna do Dark Knight. But then he was just like, nah. He's like,
fucking Batman, dude.
Yeah, Batman, man.
Fuck Harry Potter.
But ironically, then that was the only Harry Potter to either get nominated or win for best cinematography. So,
whatever.
But yeah, no, the cinematography was fantastic for Batman Begins. I think that was nominated for that. I don't know if it won. So the cinematography was fantastic. The production design was amazing. The whole Wayne Manor just looked like a normal rich person house with stuff that nobody will use. It just looks good. The whole fortress that the League of Shadows was set up was really cool. That part of the story didn't make sense to me because they're like, all right, you're Bruce Wayne. You're a guy who represents this city. We're going to train you to be a badass fighter and be amazing. And then we're going to kill the city you grew up in and
just expect that you're not going to stand in our way.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it was well thought out. You're right.
I don't know. Whatever. That was just a small detail. I was like,
well, that's just going to lead me to a little bit point
thing.
It's going to lead me to a point that I have a qualm with as far as a Batman perspective, but
Cillian Murphy was Scarecrow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, Cillian Murphy. Cillian? I don't know.
I think it is Cillian.
Amazing actor. One of the greatest actors in modern Hollywood. He's an English actor. He's just so amazing.
He's English? No way.
Yeah.
He's played so many American roles.
Well, 28 Days Later was one of his big hits.
Yeah, that was his right in the beginning.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
And he was great in that.
Hello! Hello!
Anybody? Sounds like C-3PO.
Yeah.
Over here. So he was just the greatest in this movie.
He was.
The girl who played Rachel was
Katie Holmes.
Katie Holmes.
I know that.
How did I not? I don't know why I forgot. I forgot her name for like.
She was adorable.
She was great.
She's adorable. It's hard to say she's attractive because she's just adorable.
She really is like
She's not like drop dead gorgeous, but she's just like
you can't picture her as like this like
cute little
sex object. You just picture her as just like aw.
Yeah, oh king.
So, but she actually did kind of pull off. She didn't have the Shailene Woodley curse of being only adorable and no action. She kind of was. She had her badass moments with like her pepper spray. She was like, I have pepper spray versus thugs and gangs, but whatever, it's pepper spray.
Well, she's Rachel. She's supposed to be. She signifies, although she does not exist whatsoever in the comics, she signifies the strong woman in Batman's life. So I did like how they did have her do stuff. So that makes sense that she's there.
I gotta say, I know you have some qualms about this. I gotta say the score was phenomenal. It was Hans Zimmer and the score for Batman Begins and Dark Knight were both Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard, who does a lot of James Cameron movies. So they worked together because it was before Hans Zimmer did really any kind of romantic scores for any of his films. So he actually like went on record. He's like, I don't know how to do the lovey stuff, and James Newton Howard helped him with that. And he said it was great to work with somebody else to do. Because then any time that one of them would think, oh, this is just crazy, I'm not even going to use it, the other would say, no, let's use that. So it's not yourself criticizing yourself, shutting yourself out as a composer. And then Chris Nolan did Inception with Hans Zimmer. Apparently James Newton Howard didn't want to like feel like a third wheel or something like that. He made a joke like that before he decided not to return for Dark Knight Rises. So Dark Knight Rises is solely Hans Zimmer's score, but the rest was Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard as a collaboration. There's a lot of kind of themes going on throughout the movie. Obviously, there's the iconic one that's like the high pace one. But if you notice throughout the movies, anytime something emotional happens to Bruce Wayne or Batman, the same kind of tone gets played in the background. So when his parents die in Batman Begins, the same sound is played at the very end of Dark Knight Rises. And that one I won't spoil too much because it's the newer one. It's the newest one, so that one I won't really spoil. Though you should definitely see it by now.
Well, that'll lead me into very interesting. Thank you for the lesson of James Newton Howard. I never knew that about the tone. That's pretty cool. Things like that make you realize the amount of dedication that goes into filmmaking, and I always like to hear about stuff like that. But it does lead me into not my entirely qualms with the Nolan trilogy as far as a Batman perspective as a whole, but I'm going to look specifically at Batman Begins first because it's very, very, very close to a rival as the best Batman portrayal as the other two. But Batman Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises are separate. So I'm going to talk about just Batman Begins right now. Batman Begins, as far as Batman, you were talking about the theme just a second ago. It so bugged the shit out of me that they would play one note from the theme. That's I know you said I'd have qualms. Yeah. I have qualms because it plays one note from the main Batman theme, and it's drives me crazy because I just want to hear the rest of the Batman song. And it plays the first note, and you just feel that you can hear it. If you're a Batman fan, you've seen any of the rest of them, you just hear the song being played out in your head, but you can't hear it completed. It's just it's terrible.
That would drive me crazy. I understood that they were going for a kind of paying homage to the story, but that would just drive fans crazy if you didn't fully pay homage to it.
Exactly.
It's like if...
But I understood.
It was like if for the theme of Spider-Man, they were like, Spider-Man, and then we're just... that was it.
Right, and they just and everybody in their heads going, Spider-Man does whatever, sing the rest! But,
does whatever,
yeah, it just leaves you off. So,
just changes completely.
So for me as a fan, that bummed me out. But I understood that they had to. A lot of the Nolan things that I have a problem with are because they had to make Batman realistic. But that being said, it still doesn't avoid the fact that it becomes a bad Batman movie then. Maybe a great movie, not a good Batman movie. So this is ignoring Batman Begins. Batman Begins had a great use of bats, awesome gadgets and technology.
Oh yeah.
Christian Bale was a great Bruce Wayne, a great twisted, torn up Bruce Wayne. In the first one, in Batman Begins, I'll get to the next two after. He was an okay, suave guy, but it seemed like
he's just Christian Bale.
It was too hard to see him as a good guy the whole time. Michael Caine, a great Alfred, a little bit too Michael Caine for me, in my opinion. But the thing that really came through in flying colors was the relationship between Batman and Gordon. And I love that in these new trilogy, and it was so great. It's so great. Because Gordon's supposed to be this just amazing police commissioner that just really knows what he's doing, does these things that may seem unconventional. He's dealing with a ton of corrupt cops, a hugely corrupt city, dirty politicians, massive crime bosses, and he has to do good. And he knows the only way he can do good is to work well with this Batman character. So it introduces this extra intrigue that I really liked, and I think Gary Oldman was a fantastic portrayal of
he just can't do, as we discussed in our last episode with
he can't do wrong.
He can't do a bad movie.
Yep.
I.e. Tiptoes. He can't not nail a role, even no matter how bad the movie is. One of my favorite scenes between Jim Gordon and Batman is their first kind of back and forth when he first says, "Hey, I'm Bat." He doesn't say this word for word. He's like, "Hey, yo, I'm Batman. I'm Batman, and I'm just gonna I'm gonna kill, or I'm gonna punch criminals for a while." So
that's kind of my deal.
So that's my thing.
Get used to it.
Get used to it. But he had this kind of like, he was whispering. He was like really kind of sneaky about it, and he clicks what Gordon thinks is a gun behind him, and it shows the trustworthiness of not only Batman but of just kind of like the relationship between them just starts right there to show if he put up an actual gun to Gordon would never trust him. But he put a stapler up to him. So he tosses the stapler on the desk right before he pieces out. So
and that starts the bond, like you said, between Gordon knowing that he needs to go outside the law to get what needs to be done in Gotham, but he can't personally do it because he morally is too bound by the fact that he is a cop. So he knows he needs to use his friend, aka Batman, to do what he cannot do. And that's a perfect, great relationship between those two people, and I love how they did that in this movie. And this movie alone, as far as the portrayal of Batman, the look of the Batcave is debatable because they tried to make it very realistic. It's not as cool as in Batman Forever, and they try to make it realistic. As far as the relationship between him and Gordon, the gadgets, the bad guys, very, very cool. The dark grittiness of it. I think this is a great portrayal of Batman.
I like it. A lot of people say that these movies are dark and gritty, but I think they're more just realistic. That's kind of a show on what people see like as realistic, because when you think about it, dark and gritty, Tim Burton blows them out of the water with dark and gritty. But as far as realism goes, that's what makes it so dark and gritty. It was so realistic. It was so painful and so...
The thing that takes away from the grittiness is when they're goofy and playful. You got like in the one in Batman Returns, you got a monkey walking around with suspenders giving Penguin messages. I mean, it just I swear. And he's like, it just gives you the kind of like, oh, this is like a circus, this is fun movie.
One of the really iconic scenes in this movie that I'd like to point out that I really like, another kind of little factoid about it. When he's standing in the Batcave with all the bats flying around him, that's such a,
that scene is great.
That scene's great.
The bats and everything, and that's like his first introduction to the police force as Batman. And it's also him taking down the main bad guy.
Yeah, that movie's great. If you have ever been in a cave with bats, which I haven't, but and I don't know how many people have, but I've heard that bats have so perfect sonar that if they're flying around you, if they're flying straight at you, they will not hit you. A huge crew of bats. You'll never have to be afraid of that because they will never hit you. I actually heard that from my dad.
Cool.
Shout out to Dad.
Papa a lot. And that leads us to,
brother.
we're going to try to, for time's sake, condense the last two, and I know it's bad because they're such great movies, but if you can quickly look at the Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises as just kind of separate movies, but at the same time together,
Yeah.
and I will do so as well, and yeah.
Yeah, they had the most kind of like similarities. It was when they knew, like, we're gonna have we're in this for kind of the long run with these movies. Because after Batman Begins, they're like, are we gonna just change directors? Are we gonna do whatever? And then Chris Nolan came back as a director. He wrote more. He had more to do with the script. He brought in his brother Jonah Nolan, who is a great writer, and helped write his other movie Interstellar, which was phenomenal. So David S. Goyer returned to help writing. Got the same cinematographer, Wally Feister, for, everybody's just returned. It was such a good. I like how this movie was really like one of the better trilogies of just modern movies, because so many movies are like, yeah, they're a trilogy, but they had like each movie had a different director or, whatever. That's what, all the actors returned with the exception of Rachel, she was replaced by Maggie Gyllenhaal, which I think was not the greatest move, because she
maybe acting wise, you would say acting wise, as far as a personal decision.
Well, I mean, like, she's a decent actress, but she didn't make her character really that likable. She kind of was just like this, like, yeah, I'm a sassy lady. Whereas Rachel in the first one was kind of like, she was like this sentimental piece of Bruce Wayne's history that, like, kind of was like, she knew what she was. She knew she wasn't this badass fighter, because she was, you could tell at moments she was scared for her life. And this new Rachel was kind of just like, boom, I'm pretty much as badass as Batman. It's like, no, you're not. You're not at all.
Yeah. So, I'm interested to see what you think as compared to the two, as far as pacing wise, because they're very different movies. I noticed, at least. I don't know what you noticed, but Dark Knight, a lot of people have kind of criticized for it, because although it's an incredible movie, it is all action. It's hard to really kind of delve into the character, and a lot of people, I remember reading an article when it first came out, how Heath Ledger almost completely overshadowed Christian Bale's role as Batman because Heath Ledger was so damn good. So I wanted to ask you to compare the two pacing, because in Dark Knight it's like bars to none, like straight barrel through you with pacing, and then Dark Knight Rises is very different, a lot more character development. So did you notice that?
It is a big story on that. It's very story based. It's not very Batman based. It's a lot more plot holes. That was one thing. That's just kind of to throw that out.
Yeah, we could get that on forever.
Yeah, but I really, honestly, as a writer, I understand how many plot holes a movie like that big would have, and with Interstellar and Inception and Dark Knight Rises, Chris Nolan always owns up to that. Yeah, they all have plot holes, and he completely owns up to them every single time. He says nobody knows how many plot holes they have except for, like, the maker. Like, he's like, I know how many plot holes there are, and I know more plot holes than anybody who's seen the film. Because he makes it, and he totally owns up to it, and that's what I really like about one of the many things I like about Nolan. And yeah, so the pacing was very different. The directing was very cool, and it was different. The shots were longer in Dark Knight, with the Joker kind of going on his rants. They followed the Joker. They were all the pacing changed since Batman Begins. There was long takes on Joker. There was these cool kind of, like, a lot of natural lighting, a lot of kind of like Terrence Malick-ish moments in Dark Knight Rises, when he's kind of trying to find himself in the cave and trying to, a lot more philosophy, obviously, in all of the movies. But Batman Begins actually is pretty underrated with how much philosophy it has and how much really cool writing it is. But that's just I don't know.
Right, I agree.
So, yeah, I mean, the movies are just these masterpiece movies. They're phenomenal. There's you could tell Dark Knight had a lot of action base in it. Dark Knight Rises had a lot of character building base in it.
Yeah,
and
that's
was
a very big difference. That's a big difference.
So obvious, yeah.
But I liked
the
them
two.
both for their own good.
Yeah, and that worked with each characters, because when you think about it, Joker is this crazy mayhem guy who just wants chaos. The whole theme of the movie was chaos, and each of the Batman movies had a theme that followed through. Batman Begins had fear, Dark Knight had chaos, and Dark Knight Rises had pain. That was the big theme word. That was the word of the day, I guess, with that one, because it was very driving. It was very there were moments where it was very slow paced, and the whole point was because Bane as a villain was so charismatic and so kind of like he thought everything through. He thinks so much through, and he has this slow building drive that's just eventually
he's very committed.
Cripples Batman and Bruce Wayne and imprisons him and imprisons the entire city and just fucks everyone over in these like swift like it's like an hour into the movie, more than an hour into the movie. But it's like a 5-second scene where he just takes everything.
Yep.
Because he's planning. He's so good at planning and so well thought that there's not a lot of explosions and action until this quick scene where boom, everything goes to shit. And then the rest of the movie is figuring out, wow, everyone it fell on their ass and was just like, all right, how do I get up now? And that was really cool. That was that's the biggest kind of thing I noticed between the pacing of the two. Whereas Joker, just the whole movie is just trying to just do everything bad. And that's cool. That worked with Joker and Heath Ledger. And I'm done with that. So.
If you ever think about cool ways to segue into me talking, think about it.
I liked that segue. I'm going to leave this all.
I'm
done with that. Your turn. Goodbye.
I am saying keep that in the back seat of your mind so you can think about that because it's cool.
So comic book you.
Anyways, the next two of the Batman, these two are where I have the biggest problem with, and like what you were saying before, with the difference of the reality really grounded. Oh, you were saying that there's different themes for the verse. There was fear for the first one. Chaos for the second one, pain for the third one. As far as Batman, it was a perfect rendition of the trilogy of Batman. Batman Begins was the starting out of Batman. Dark Knight was everybody getting used to the fact that Batman was the kind of hero, but everybody didn't like him towards the end. And then the third was Batman being rejected as a hero and his end and demise. So it was a perfect start, during, and conclusion of Batman. But his portrayal being grounded by reality, where it happens to take a lot out of the Batman-esque for me, and that's where it falls short on a lot of Batman things. The gadgets are really grounded by reality. In Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, Bruce Wayne hardly ever gets to show how much of a billionaire he is. Rachel, my biggest trope, my biggest problem with these last two movies, even all three, is when there's a point that he doesn't even mention his parents. He says he would like to hang up the cape and cowl, but what would Rachel say? What would Rachel say? Are you like, he completely has forgotten about why he's done this. He doesn't do it for his parents anymore. He does not do it. And that really what bugged me, and it's not, it really lost everything for me.
They do that a little in Dark Knight Rises, where the memory of his parents inspire him to get back up and realize what he's fighting for. He's not just, he can't give up, because that would mean everything.
He sees his dad for a split second, and that's what kind of gets him up again. And I guess that maybe, but it's not used well enough. And he keeps saying he's doing this for Rachel, and he's doing this for his city. But he never mentions about how he's really doing this. He's supposed to be cursed by this debt he made, or this promise he made towards his family. And that's the only problem I have with the Dark Knight trilogy. So, in the end, looking back at it as a whole, they're great movies, but they don't seem to capture Bruce Wayne as a person, and they don't seem to capture Batman as far as the gadgets and the cave, and I just don't like Rachel. I just don't like Rachel.
I gotta address a big issue that people have in the movies. 2 issues. One is the voice, obviously. Obviously, Christian Bale brought that voice to Terminator Salvation for some reason, but with the Batman movies, he originally kept in Batman Begins. He has this kind of good where it's raspy,
Good,
but it's
like quiet, whispery voice.
yeah,
I liked it.
but it's still like when he needs to be scary, he was scary. He didn't talk all the time as a scary person. He would talk as this raspy kind of like informative guy, and then when he needed to scare that one guy, the swear to me scene.
Swear to me.
he used that voice. That was a perfect utilization of that voice. And then in the second movie, he actually did the same thing, but in post-production, to address this, in post-production, they garbled his voice and they made him re-record some
Nolan
lines for
screwed
ADR.
up. Nolan's no better than Joel. He is no better.
Don't you say this or else
is
I'm gonna kill you.
No better than Joel Schumacher.
Alright, so this is the last episode.
Who put the nipples on the bats?
Last episode of the Real Brothers podcast. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm gonna murder my brother.
Of course, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he did introduce an element that everybody likes to criticize Christopher Nolan, that everybody likes to criticize Christian Bale for, but in fact, it was actually Christopher Nolan. It's like if Val Kilmer was like, yo, let's put nipples on the bat suit. And Joel Schumacher's like, no, we shouldn't do that. And he's like, no, we definitely should. And they did it. So you gotta remember.
It was a lot of
you gotta know who to
kind
blame,
of.
guys.
Another complaint that I saw in a Cracked article that I thought was, Cracked always loves to forget what fiction is. Even though I love the site with a passion, sometimes they have articles that are like fiction objects that wouldn't work in the real world. It's like, yeah, the word fiction. Anyway, the one there was they say the plot hole in Dark Knight Rises, and this is kind of stretching my kind of justification for it, is that the guy in Dark Knight who says, I know the secret identity of Bruce Wayne, but then never ends up saying it or whatever because of, it's a whole thing with that. And then they say, okay, so he could totally just give up Batman's identity in Dark Knight Rises because nobody likes him. He apparently murdered this guy. I think this guy is really taking the whole "you saved my life" to heart, because in the scene of Dark Knight, when he's on his way to he's like, I'm gonna reveal it to the world, and then there's the whole threat and everything. Bruce Wayne himself saves the guy's life who's about to reveal his identity and ruin everything for him. So I think that's kind of a thing. He's got to say, if he saved my life, I'm a nobody who was going to ruin his life. He clearly did not kill somebody like Harvey Dent, but I'm just going to keep that to myself. I'm not going to tell anyone. I'll just,
That was a great scene. That was a good scene.
So that's a scene that a lot of people forget about. It's just Batman.
It's a good Bruce Wayne / Batman scene because
he plays it off great as Bruce Wayne.
He plays it off like, oh crap, I just ruined my Lambo, bro. But
and Jim Gordon's like, you almost died.
Yeah, and he's just like, oh, whatever. But they kind of lock eyes, like, we have a good understanding, which is great. Yeah. They also introduced Lucius Fox, which in none of the movies before they had introduced. And in the comics, very, very relevant, and Lucius is a very playing character, so I'm glad they did that too. Morgan Freeman, fantastic choice. He didn't overplay his role too.
Perfect.
He didn't overplay himself like a lot of big actors would in that role. So yeah, of course. And I gotta say real quick, Heath Ledger as the Joker, fantastic. He definitely took a spin on the character. He was a lot less Mark Hamill, more so like brutal soldier-esque. My one qualm with him, my one problem with him is that he didn't seem to enjoy himself as the Joker would, as much as, the Joker normally does in the comics and stuff in the show. He should have enjoyed himself a little bit more, but that put that kind of sick and twisted edge to it that I really enjoyed. Yeah,
instead of enjoying himself, they kind of replaced enjoying himself with just huge balls.
Yeah.
He just had these enormous balls. It was just he honestly, at a lot of points in the movie, did not care if he died. He was like, if I die, all right, who cares? I don't care. And that was cool. A really subtle thing he does when he puts the gun, after Harvey Dent changes, he takes the gun and he says, just shoot me right now then. he legitimately cocks back the hammer of the gun, which if anyone knows anything about guns, you know that makes it super easy to shoot the gun. He could accidentally shoot Joker. Just like sneeze and shoot the Joker on accident.
Yeah.
But the Joker doesn't care because he knows his plan will still maybe succeed if he does that. That's such a, I don't know, that was really cool. Heath Ledger was great. Obviously, there's that infamous scene where Michael Caine was supposed to talk, but he's supposed to read his line or something like that. And instead, but it was the first time Michael Caine saw Heath Ledger as the Joker. And you could see Michael Caine go up to say something, but then he just looks at Joker, like craps his pants, I'm assuming, and backs away. And the Joker just goes on with his monologue. And, you know, so that was just something, just a detail about Heath Ledger's Joker that was so powerful. Just everything about that. And it's what made, it's what made him so hard to top with Tom Hardy's Bane.
So yeah, let quickly go to origin stories. Obviously, they did a great job with Joker, giving him no origin stories. Every time he told his cool stories, it was a different story, which I loved because that you never know his real origin. Bane, they did a great job with him. Ra's al Ghul, they did a fantastic job. The one thing I will say as a whole, my two biggest problems, like I had said with Rachel, and also I will say that Batman's training should have not just come from the League of Shadows. As far as the comics are concerned, it was a mixture of his own training with training that he did all over the world that got him to where he was. And that's what I liked about him so much. So I didn't like that how they did the League of Shadows. Bane, fantastically done. Joker, fantastically done. Also, he totally kills Ra's al Ghul. Totally kills. He sets him up.
The fake Ra's al Ghul, and
yeah,
but
he sets him up for death.
He did do the setup for death with the Liam Neeson.
He doesn't kill him. He sets him up,
and he says, "I'm not gonna kill you."
Yeah,
and then pieces out.
And then pieces out.
I'm definitely not gonna save you.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna save you. He does this in a lot of comics. He basically knocks like the baddies guys out, like in a car. He'll knock them unconscious and then he'll jump out as they're careening towards a telephone pole. Like, come on. But
you totally just killed that guy. No.
As a whole, technically, from a very Batman perspective, I gotta go with Batman Begins as far as the Nolan trilogy. That being said, they are very pitfalled by their reality. They gotta be stuck by reality, so that sucks.
If you had to choose between, just as a movie, if you had to choose between Dark Knight Rises and Batman Begins.
Batman Begins.
Not as...
Oh, as a movie?
Just as a movie in general, which you like
Still
better.
Batman Begins. Because Batman gets more airtime in that one, and I gotta see Batman.
He does. It was so cool. You would never expect... I had no idea that Gotham was going to get occupied. That was cool. And it
introduced a lot of
stories.
Comic elements that I haven't got a chance to talk to you about.
A lot of graphic novel stuff.
So in the end, let's look at all of them that we said. I mean, to be honest, I think the three that stick out for me as a Batman perspective would be the 1989 one, Batman Forever, and Batman Begins.
And Adam West.
Number one. My childhood is telling me to go with Batman Forever, but I'm also leaning towards Batman Begins. It's tough. As far as a Batman perspective, it needs to be a little cartoonish, but it also needs to be dark. So I think what I'm really trying to say is it hasn't been made yet. The perfect Batman portrayal in a live-action movie has not been made yet. So my real big hopes up are towards Batman vs. Superman. I think it's going to be fantastic. I really actually have humongous high hopes, and I know I shouldn't, but I think it's going to be the best Batman portrayal on live action.
No matter what, with Zack Snyder behind the visuals, writing is a different story, but with Zack Snyder behind the visuals, I think he will get the perfect spot-on visuals. He'll be a little... I think his visuals will be a little better than Batman Forever, in the fact that Batman Forever looked like it was kind of out of a comic book, but a little bit too out there. And I think Zack Snyder will land perfectly because he can do...
That's what I was thinking too.
Perfect.
Right in the middle. You know what I mean?
In the middle.
Because Joel Schumacher, Tim Burton, a little too cartoonish. Christopher Nolan, too realistic. I think Zack Snyder can find a really good easy ground, just like he did with Man of Steel. I think it was a good job.
The post 9/11 Superman.
Exactly. So that wraps it up. Please give us your comments, your thoughts, anything. That would be great to comment once in a while on our YouTube channel, as well as Twitter. We have started that now. Let us know your thoughts. I know it's very controversial what we just talked about, and actually we might revisit this topic once again because there's so much to talk about. I love Batman. I love the Batman movies. But next week we have a totally new topic that I have no idea what we're going to talk about. So we'll figure that out. Max, you got anything else?
Well, next week we might do a bonus episode. We might do 2 episodes for next week. One would just be a regular news episode because we haven't done that in a while. And the other would be a complete spoiler podcast on Interstellar because that just came out on DVD, so we could analyze that. I could talk about a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff because I got the special edition. Check out the unboxing video that I put on the channel, the YouTube channel that I'll also link. And, I guess just check out the channel just in general. Keep up with that. You can subscribe to that. We're kind of just sticking with podcasts for now, but I'm going to be filming whatever content I can. I have other people filming content that are editing it and going to be posting that up.
Again, quick shout out to the Arkham Sessions. Thank you very much. You guys were great. Cool psychological views on Batman, the animated series. You definitely inspired me as far as the structure of our podcast and as far as what to talk about.
Shout out to Chris Nolan. You could come hang out with me anytime you want. We can be best friends if you want. I'll go to England if, just whatever. We'll put in a pin on it, Okay?
But thanks for everybody. Please keep listening. I hope you're enjoying it. Comment, give your thoughts. My name is Nick.
My name is Max.
And we are the Real Brothers Podcast. I'll see you next time.
Brothers ready? Roll podcast and action.